Votes under Mac.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Punching Left. Although it may not be a great evening after you had to witness that wonderful campaign ad ran by a Democrat in, where was it, New Hampshire or Maine or something, a very small state. I believe it's the smallest state. And that was absolutely horrifying. But what's not horrifying is our lovely guest on the show today, Annie. Annie, why don't you introduce yourself to our followers here on the show?
I wish you would ask me that before I saw what I saw, but I'm going to do my best. Well, on a personal level, I am somebody who managed to escape a tyranny of Islamization in my motherland, Iran, made my way to America, didn't jump over borders. I made it here through proper channels, became a citizen. I've been actively trying to inform my fellow Americans about dangers of Islam and Red Green Axis, which is alliance between the left, liberals, and Islamization of the West, specifically America. I'm also a host of a daily show on Lindell TV, Frank Speech, every day, 3:30 Eastern time. Actually, Michael. Wait, Michael, do you go by Michael or do you go by Mike?
I'll answer to whatever somebody wants to call me, pretty much.
Don't make me do that. But okay, I'll call him Michael. So Michael is actually my associate producer on my daily show. We have been working and been friends for a while now.
Oh, yeah.
What else? I have an organization called Live Up to Freedom, which is the name of my show as well. We do rescue cases. We go and snatch people who are being killed, tortured, or imprisoned by Islam and Islamic government and countries. That's all for now.
Yeah, wow, that's quite a resume there, and obviously, yes, Annie does focus primarily on the Islam stuff, which is a topic that I was very interested in. We brought up on the show before, and something that I've heard Annie say before, which I totally agree with, and I've been saying for a long time as well, is that it's not radical Islam, it's not extremist Muslims, it is just regular Islam. And I've always said, maybe this is a little controversial, but ISIS is the perfect representation of Islam. If you read the Quran, which I've read cover to cover, it's very clear that there's many verses, sort of 9:123, sort of 8:12, that explicitly say, go out and kill all the unbelievers. So we're glad that Annie is doing this work, fighting against Islam, fighting for truth. And, really all we're doing is stating the explicit material in the Quran, and that makes people go crazy.
Yeah.
Yes, and the fun part is I actually love it when I just cite Quran. Just read the Quran. Funny enough, I use their own Quran, their own references, and then I get attacked by Muslims and I'm called hateful for citing what's said in their own book. And I'm like, I'm just a messenger.
Yeah, exactly. And that's really the most effective way to do things anyway. You just point out their own words and you use that to demonstrate, where the evil comes from. Like, we act like every time there's a terrorist attack or something else that it's unexpected or an exception to the rules, when in reality, this is what's proselytized to people from an early age to do, to go out and carry out that.
Absolutely. And speaking of like terrorist acts and these horrific events, we have our first leading story here, which is the mass shooting that took place on July 4th. And there's an image on screen. This is like a legitimate image. The shooter dressed as a woman, supposedly to deceive people or kind of trick people into thinking he was a woman so that he could get away. Or is that the story, Mike?
Yeah, and so actually, like when we were just kind of talking about this, we recorded yesterday, went out yesterday, we kind of guessed that he may have been dressed as a woman as a way to get away from the police. We know this is also something he did for fun in his free time, but that does appear to be the case from what they're saying, that he did the shooting, maybe dressed as a woman, maybe not, but did use this as a way to elude the police, to basically hide in plain sight until he could get away.
Right. Well, and Annie, right? I mean, you've said in the past, like you've noticed that there's some Islamic terrorist attacks where people dress like women too, as well, right?
Yes, actually, funny enough, it's been reported by our own military that when we were in Iraq and when we were in Afghanistan, a lot of time, hijab, the burqa, the trash bag hijab,
Yes.
that walked toward our soldiers, and it ended up being Islamist jihadi, a man underneath that burqa. But the with this guy, whatever we call him, I'm gonna do self-censoring here.
Yeah, exactly.
It's amazing that when outside of Islam, when people like us talk about the normalization of transgenders in America, when you go so far as to providing, you feel like a woman today used a girl's locker room, you feel like a man used a man locker room. We even put apparently men who identify as women in prison, and they go get women prisoners pregnant. This
Right.
is what the result is.
Yeah.
It becomes so normalized now. This guy didn't get away with it. By the way, I think this guy should have stopped watching Shameless as well, because Mickey got away with it because it's a TV show.
Yeah.
That doesn't really apply. But that's the thing. Normalization of so much confusion in our society has resulted to where we are today, including the fact that this guy actually thinks he can get away with it by just looking like a woman. By the way, as a woman, I'm offended because that guy does not look like a woman. This
No.
is what a woman looks like.
Yeah, well, they never look like a woman. But to touch on something you said a minute ago that is most certainly true, that ISIS or other terrorists dressing as women to then attack targets. Like I know of someone personally, I think we brought this up on the show before. She was an MP in the army. And part of the time where she was stationed in Iraq, she was doing security at mosques. And there were 2 different times where they had suicide bombers, men dressed as women in burqas. One person couldn't get their explosive to detonate, and the other one she actually had to take out because she was the only one that had a clear shot on this person, because the other MPs that were with her were trying to get the crowd away, and the person did reveal themselves first. The first one, like, they knew something was wrong. This was obviously not a woman. The person, gave signs that they were about to do something, but this is a common tactic.
Well, something I find funny, going back to what you said, Mike, is that they never look like women. Is when the shooter was described to police before they knew who this was, he was still described as a man
Yeah.
wearing blue. And it was like, this guy grew his hair out, he put makeup on, he tried to dress like in women's clothing. And at the end of the day, someone looked at him on like a rooftop and they're like, yeah, that's a dude.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah, but I think he was hoping, I don't think he was doing this in hopes of getting away with it by looking like a woman. His agenda was, because we're so, PC'd nowadays, police would not have stopped him and asked him anything, because that would have been discrimination against a man who's identifying as a woman. I genuinely think that's what went through his head.
Yeah, and that may be the case too, because it sounds like he hung around the area for a little while before leaving. And this could have been for any number of reasons, but because, obviously they wouldn't think the shooter would hang out there. That'd be the last place you'd look. So if they just saw this transgender person walking around, they probably just ignored him for exactly those reasons. They don't want to be accused of discrimination or anything. And the descriptions are looking for a man.
Right. And even like with, even if the police were doing like discriminating, let's say, and they were like, well, most mass shooters are guys, there's very few female mass shooters. Even if the police saw this person in passing and he's passing as a woman, which was maybe his intent, the police would be like, well, that's a girl. It's probably not the shooter, right? Because all mass shooters tend to be guys. So that's probably one of the things that contributed as well.
Yeah, very well could be.
I think we prefer poisoning.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, that the majority of homicides committed by women tend to be like a planned homicide, tend to be poisoning, whereas men, it's usually like shooting, clubbing, or whatever. But that's
we don't like to clean up messes, nor do we like to create messes.
This makes sense.
Well, speaking of creating messes, there was a large explosion that took place, from my understanding of this site. I mean, I guess it wasn't that big of an explosion, but something big enough to knock down a rock. Now, I don't know what this is. Mike, can you please explain why everyone on the internet is talking about these rocks?
Yeah, the Georgia Guidestones. A lot of people think, that this is some sort of conspiracy about the, Illuminati or the One World Order or whatever. It has supposedly like rules to live by, like keeping the Earth's population below 500 million people. I mean, it is pretty creepy stuff. These went up in 1980s. Nobody knows for sure who put them up. A lot of people think it was Ted Turner sponsored it. But yeah, at 4 a.m., somebody detonated explosives that took out one stone completely, destroyed another, damaged the others. And initially, they actually thought it was an earthquake. So whatever they used must have been pretty big. But nearby, they actually had seismic sensors go off. They thought there had been a minor earthquake in Georgia.
Wow. And I don't know, Annie, what are your thoughts on this situation? I don't know how I feel about it personally. I'm not going to be losing any sleep myself.
Yeah.
Wait, so somebody blew up an area that was put together by some crazy people who thinks they should control the population on Earth, and somebody's bothered by that?
These are like 10 commandments, from my understanding. These like rules etched into these rocks that were put up somewhere, and then someone blew up these rocks.
Yeah, it's kind of like
that had inscriptions on them.
I know, but hold on. They flew planes into our buildings. They started shooting an entire gay club in Florida. They bombed a marathon, and this is bothering people now?
Oh yeah,
I guess so.
Well, So this is the other observation I saw is at least somewhat interesting. So, we also spent the last 2 years basically letting leftists tear down statues or rename colleges or destroy monuments. And now people are upset about this one, the one time it happens, maybe the other direction. We don't even know that for sure.
Yeah, right. We don't even know who did this. Everyone's just saying it's like a right winger, which, hey, I mean, I'm glad that we're finally starting to fight fire with fire, and we're finally striking back because I'm not really cool with the whole satanic cabal statues and idols being put up, whether that it's like this or otherwise. Or they have giant George Floyd statues, golden George Floyd statues, idols being put up in New York too. The left is kind of crazy with this stuff.
Yeah, hero worship.
Yeah, no. I just want to jump in, guys. I forgot to say something before we came to this topic. I just personally, and on behalf of the gentlemen on this program with me, I just want to make sure that nobody's going to twist this into our heart goes out to everyone who was affected by the 4th of July shooting in Chicago. Us somewhat making fun of the guy who tried to be stupid has nothing to do with our absolute heartbreak for those who were affected by this event. But however, we're not going to blame gun control over it. We're going to blame the person who was evil enough to pull this off. Sorry,
Yeah.
carry on.
Right,
well,
and it's similar to the Uvalde shooting that happened, where me and Mike were like totally blasting the shooter because he is a weird freak, and it's the same with this person. This is like an abnormal, weird, psychopathic person, and we need to point out all of the abnormalities with them because we are trying to underscore the point that this is clearly a mental health issue. That this is not some normal, regular person that you would see out in the streets. This is like an insane person, which is why they did an insane, terrible thing. But if we just ignore all the relevant facts, because we're scared of, being offensive or anything to someone, then we're not really getting that information out there. And it's important to note how abnormal these people are.
Exactly. And on top of that, for anybody out there who thinks we need more gun control, I'll tell you what, a person like this person, they didn't go to a store and do a background check and fingerprint to get their gun. Okay. They got it from some illegal on the streets. So let's not worry about gun controls.
Yeah, actually, with this guy, it's starting to look like his parents might have bought him the gun. So the police actually seized weapons from him previously. And I'm finding conflicting things about that. Some said it was just knives. This guy again is like every time this guy was known to police, they'd been out there because of a suicide attempt and everything else.
Right.
So there's already like red flag laws on the books for somebody just like this. And kind of like we've talked about before, I'm obviously not in favor of this modern incantation of red flag laws. But when it comes to somebody like this, that is a clear danger, multiple signs like him, like the Uvalde shooter and like dozens of other ones, there should be a system in place to at least temporarily put them on that NICS list so they can't purchase a firearm. But there also needs to be a path for redemption where somebody gets placed on that for illegitimate reasons, a way to go through the court system or some other way to get pulled back off of it. And that's our problem, or my problem at least, with current red flag laws, is there is no road to redemption or no road for correction if you just have a lunatic ex-girlfriend or whatever that reports you.
Yeah, but Michael, how about this? We can have all the red flag laws. I actually talked about this years ago about Hillary, but I know for a fact, coming from where I come from, when a killer wants to kill, they kill.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's not about the gun or the knife or the bomb. I have watched in Turkey when I was a refugee, we had curfew time to be home as refugees.
Mm-hmm.
For the specific reason that the Kurdish Turkish members of that area, which is a border between Iran and Turkey, a town called Van, spelled with a V-A-N, it was that they would actually rape and behead girls that were from the Shia other side of the border, using pieces of metal, sharpened pieces of metal to behead them.
That's insane.
But that's the thing. A killer is a killer. It doesn't matter what kind of weapon. They can kill someone with their hand, drive their van into the population.
Yeah.
I personally think we don't need weapon control of any kind. What we do need is, first of all, stop brainwashing our kids into, I know you have a topic to talk about. I don't want to jump ahead of your show, but we are brainwashing our kids to be absolutely zero morals, no values, and be just bunch of do whatever pleases you.
Yeah.
Secondly, we're letting go of all the mental illness because we don't want to be offensive again. That's where we need to pay the attention. Someone who's sick is sick. Stop giving them option of take your pills and go home. No, we can't do that because our freedoms don't apply to if you get off your pills and go crazy and kill people, then you kill people. That's not giving them freedom. That's giving them opportunity to kill innocent people.
Right.
Yeah,
And like
exactly.
Mike said, this person had already been confronted with like mental health professionals and police in the past. And it's like with so many of these shooters, the writing was on the wall. And, the gun laws will not stop these, terrible things from happening. What will stop these things from happening is when you have a mentally insane person, maybe putting them in a mental asylum or getting them help that they need, or having like a psychologist speak with them and just get a deeper understanding of where they're at mentally, because it is always, every single time, the common denominator, like Annie said, is not guns, because people can kill people with explosives, with vehicles, with their bare hands, with sharp objects, etc. But the common denominator among all these murderers is they're all crazy in the head, and that's what we should be focusing on to try to solve.
Yeah, you've got that exactly right. And that is, it is the pathology that we've seen over and over again. People will kill with whatever they have on hand. A gun just makes it easier than, say, using a knife. It's less dirty. People don't have that same kind of connection. But yeah, a killer will kill regardless. It's just a tool to complete the job. The real problem is, like you touched on, Annie, it is partially our education system, and people are so self-centered, and we no longer teach morals. Everything is this moral relativism, and then that takes away from people's humanity and their feelings towards others, which makes something like this easier to do. We also don't go after people that do have these warning signs. We don't want to stigmatize them. We don't want to cause other problems from further down the line instead of dealing with the problem. And society has to deal with the problems like this, or things like this happen.
Exactly. Bottom line is we need to stop censoring ourselves. We need to stop caring about other people's emotion and protect our people. Simple as that.
Yeah, you've got that exactly right.
People who aren't protecting our people are the people in the White House, such as Joe Biden, who, oh my goodness, look at this. Mike, why don't you explain this story? Absolutely insane.
Yeah, so we've talked several times about Biden's collapsing poll numbers. We focused on like with the where he's collapsing with certain demographics. So now the rest of America has finally joined the Hispanics. He's down to a 23% nationwide approval average. So this means 77% of the country believe that we are on the wrong track.
Wait, did you say 23%?
Yes, 23.
Are you telling me that we still have 23% population of stupid in America?
Well, I'm going with this is it's the CNN airport population. As long as CNN was still running at the airports, their ratings still appeared to be higher than they were. This is your default Democrats. And this is probably also people too, that when you do telephone polling, people, the way questions are phrased will push somebody to answer one way or another. But there's also just some insane people out there that think like things are great right now, that like fuel prices going up, people using less gas is somehow good. Or us not being able to buy certain foods, not being able to buy meat is a good thing. There is a percentage of the population that believes that, and then there's another one that just isn't, another percentage that just isn't paying attention.
I'm sorry, I don't get it. I don't understand how anyone in their right mind with even low IQ of a cucumber would ever approve of Biden. I don't know how.
Yeah, even like the lefties, like I know there's a lot of people who are like, oh, I don't like the Democrats. I don't like Biden. I like, Bernie Sanders and socialism. And they still would say I disapprove of Joe Biden because they're so like left wing. I don't really know any like establishment, old guard Democrats who really like Joe Biden. It's kind of a confusing thing to me.
I agree. I mean, I don't know where this 23% is coming from. It's coming from somewhere. But I don't understand why. But you're right, though. Even the left is obviously abandoning him.
When it's like approve of what? Like what is there to approve of in the first place? He's not doing anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, he's not the only Democrat with approval problems right now. Ilhan Omar just got booed off the stage at a Somali musical festival in Minnesota, in her home state.
Wow, by Somalians or by like other people?
Somalians.
Yeah. Primarily.
Muslim Somalians. The concert was actually on Somalia's Independence Day. Performer was a Somalian, very popular Somalian Muslim singer. And almost everyone, I think more than 85% of people inside that room were the population of Somalian Muslims of Minnesota and surrounding states that traveled there to attend that concert. Wow. And yes, they all booed. Honestly, I would take, I mean, I did my victory dance anyways, but it wasn't just she was booed. Like they were dropping F-bomb non-stop. She didn't get a chance to say a word.
Yeah,
not
exactly.
even a word.
Yeah, they shut her down as soon as she opened her mouth. I was actually going to run the video, but there's so much foul language in it. I didn't want to censor it all because you'd just be hearing bleep, 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 bleep. So it's just as effective to run the image. But yeah, you're right. She barely got a word in edgewise. So this person's not very popular, obviously, but somehow they keep winning elections.
Well,
Right, that's
actually,
very
it's
odd.
funny. I covered this on my program. I
Hmm.
don't remember when. I think it was Tuesday or so. But that was the thing. It's she got away with so much, so much. She did one thing against Sharia, one, and that was congratulating, LGBTQ in their Pride Month. That's
Yeah.
it. One wrong move, and Muslims are literally dropping her. And by the way, yes, I agree. This does not mean she's not going to win again.
Yeah.
It doesn't. However, it does show it should teach a very valuable lesson to us
Hmm.
Americans, specifically Christian Americans, that this should happen. We should be doing this,
Yeah.
standing up for our values, which are real values. It's not a
Yeah.
value of kill everybody, but that should teach us a lesson. No matter how united they are when it comes to their religion, they stand up for it. We should
Yes.
learn from them.
Well, in Islam, you can't even sing, I thought. I thought real Muslims don't sing.
Oh,
Is
you're
that true?
allowed to sing if you're a male. A female voice cannot be heard as a singer or any other shape. Actually, a female voice should not be heard by someone who's not halal to her. But as a male, you are allowed to sing as long as you can connect your lyrics into love for Allah or Muhammad or
Right.
one of the caliphs. Then you
Right.
can
It has
sing.
to be like a worship act, right? It can't just be like you're singing about a girl or whatever. That's why I was confused about the whole setting of this too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, 90% of Muslim singers from Islamic countries, including Iran, they actually get away with it, but not using terms such as she or her. So they can say we're loving on Allah or Muhammad or whatever,
Yeah.
or religion. That's how they get away. However, they do have instruments that are absolutely forbidden from being used. So they can't use those instruments.
Really, there's forbidden instruments. That's a new one.
Yes, there are forbidden instruments. Like in Iran, for example, you don't find them.
Hmm.
If you have them somehow, you better keep it safe and underground, because if they find you with it, they will confiscate the instrument and you will face jail time. And if you
Well,
have a license to do music, they will revoke your license.
What are these?
yeah, and you need a license to do music at all.
Oh, you do need license to do music. Yes. If you have a music studio, you need a license to open it, to build it. You will have random inspection from the morality police to make sure everything is in order and meeting the Sharia documentation that is within the Art and Culture Department of Islamic Republic of Iran.
What did these poor instruments do to offend the Islamic Republic of Iran?
Oh, would you believe it if I told you it's the fact any instrument that can create any kind of upbeat music that will feed your soul is offensive, because as Khomeini, the supreme leader of Islamic Republic of Iran, said, Allah did not create us to be happy. He created us to be miserable to appreciate him.
Okay,
Well,
sounds
look at that.
legit.
And dancing is illegal in Iran too, is it?
Oh, absolutely. And it's actually felony. Literally, it's a felony.
Wow.
Anyone who's arrested for dancing will face serious consequences. Yours truly, actually, I wasn't genuinely dancing. It was more of a hopping as I was singing. And I faced 50 lashes for that.
Yeah.
No way, really?
Yeah, she also got
Yes.
lashes for just attending a party when you were what, 11 years old, 12 years old? I can't remember, sorry.
Yeah, I was about 11. It was a
That's what I
party
thought.
like normal parties you have here when boys and girls are hanging out, having music. There was no drink involved. So it was just music and boys and girls under the same roof. So we all got lashed. And the
That's
person who
insane.
put the party together got double the lash.
Wow. And is it like I think in Saudi Arabia they do like public lashings. Is that what it is in Iran as well?
No, the only public lashing in Iran is for adulterers.
Okay.
If you commit adultery, the lashing is public. Otherwise, the lashing is private, where the women are lashed by women, men are lashed by men. And they basically put a bed sheet over you before they lash you, because you have to take your clothes off.
Right, yeah. And they do that to kids too, like as young as 10, 11 years old.
Well, you're not a kid technically. As a girl, age 9, you're an adult. So if you're 9 and up, then you be lashed because you're an adult. So So your crimes are, you know how here they can trial you as an adult?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Past age 9, you are an adult. So whatever you do is an adult punishment. For boys, depend on Shia or Sunni. In Iran, 12 years old, sorry, 13 is when you become an adult. So boys 13 and older become adult.
I see. And is that
However, execution doesn't apply. We have had as young as 8-year-old executed in Iran because that's different.
whoa? And is the 9-year-old age limit for women, is that because Aisha was 9 years old when Muhammad consummated with her, his wife?
Exactly.
Okay,
Yes.
that's interesting. Wow, there's a lot more to Iran. I had no idea about all this this stuff here.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Iran seemed to be the moderate country, but I go over the penal codes here and there on my show actually. But funny enough, their constitution, civil code, and penal code are all available in English online.
Mm-hmm.
Really? Yeah. Well, I have like the Sharia law penal code, but I think that's for Saudi Arabia. But I've never looked into Iran's law specifically, so that's very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, the biggest thing that makes Iran actually harsher than Saudi Arabia is the fact that the Islamic laws, punishment laws in Iran come from Sharia and then added bonus of 12 imams after Muhammad. So you got a 12 more crazy blood of Muhammad going all crazy with their laws.
Wow. And speaking of bad countries, what is the next slide we have here? I can't really see it.
Oh yeah. So, we've talked a lot about people in the U.S. obviously losing respect for our own country and for the Biden regime, but it's also the rest of the world. So we've had this unification militarily between China, Russia, Iran, and a lot of our other enemies. And recently, they've announced war games in South America. These are primarily going to be hosted in Venezuela, again, another one of our enemies. And this never would have happened under Trump. Like, we were actually feared and revered then by our enemies. They wouldn't try this type of garbage, whereas now it's out in the open. And again, this is a pretty big deal. They're going to be practicing. It's going to be an ongoing event. I guess it's going to be highlighted with some kind of sniper competition. But this is to highlight military strength and kind of show their power to South America. And this will also lead to other inroads, both for Iran, for China, for Russia, and kind of create a gateway into South America. It's also going to be arms flowing back and forth too, which of course will end up over our open border here.
Wow. Yeah, there's a lot of implications to this, and it does show the changing power dynamic. And you're right, like with Trump, we had friendly relations with Putin, which apparently was the worst thing ever. But I think if we're not being threatened by a superpower, that's usually a good thing. And China was being kept in check as well. We had like wonderful international relations. I think we had some of the best international relations under Trump than we've had in an extremely long time, despite how many people, even on the right wing, said, oh, Trump's not a good diplomat and he's just too bombastic. I thought that we had great diplomatic relations with other nations, and those relations kept us safe as Americans, which should be the top priority for the American president.
Yeah, agreed. I think when Trump was in office, like it was obviously things weren't perfect, but at least having China not doing some of this kind of things they are now, where they're actively, I guess they were still actively working against us, but things to kind of keep them in check, like you said, these tariffs, which also that's another story we aren't even covering. Biden's dropping these Trump tariffs that have been helping to rebalance trade, but things like that where our enemies knew we were serious if we said something when Trump was in office, whereas now when Biden's in office, it's a complete joke.
Well, look at North Korea. I mean, Trump basically solved the Kim Jong-un problem, where before Trump, it was every 2 years since like at least Clinton, where people where Kim Jong-un would be like, I'm going to nuke America, I'm going to nuke America, I'm going to nuke America, and we'd always give him something so he'd stop. Trump just went over there and he was like, I'm going to nuke you if you don't shut up. And then China's like, yeah, we're not messing with the U.S. with Trump in office, so you're on your own. And then all of a sudden, North Korea cooperates. So we gained stronger relationships with South Korea under Trump. And then in addition, we also repaired or alleviated some of the threat that was there because of North Korea.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you look at the name of the countries on your slide, China, Russia, Iran, that is exactly what the other angle is, which is red-green axis.
Yes.
The communist Islamists. I would actually say under Trump, it was perfect. Reason, he put a permanent ban in front of red-green axis.
Yeah.
Completely permanent. He put IRGC on terrorist list, which we all know IRGC is the one and only organization, Islamic terrorist organization, that has the capability financially to finance every other small one.
Yes.
He put them on terrorist list. Then he took out 4 of the heads of Islamic terror in Middle East. Literally, he took them out. The last one's which they're still looking for revenge. Soleimani,
Yes.
he literally just made a threat that we're going to attack the American embassy in Iraq, and next day he was gone.
Yeah.
Just like that.
Yeah,
now
that's
we're
that.
at the negotiation table where Biden is like, what else do you want to sign the agreement? They're like, lift IRGC from terrorist list. Biden's like, okay, let me go convince everybody to do it. And then the alliance between Iran, China, and Russia, actually, Michael, we were talking about a few days ago, how they're literally genuinely doing business contracts, business with Taliban today,
Yes.
between China and Iran, building a bridge from Iran into Afghanistan. All of that, yes. Well, I mean, I don't know if I told you guys or not, but I watch the Iranian news literally every night when it's morning time there. They genuinely refer to Biden as the puppet. They don't even say Biden. They say Joe the puppet.
Oh man,
That's where we're at.
that's terrible. The Iranian news service is more honest than the American media. But it's two things that this gives. This also gives these regimes legitimacy around the world, because it isn't just these three bad actors we have to worry about. It's now all of a sudden we're allowing them to project power instead of immediately putting the smackdown on Iran, for example, and saying, hey, you guys are under sanctions. If China, if you go in there and you build this highway, this road in to go get materials out of Afghanistan, then we're not going to trade XYZ with you, or we're going to cut off this supply with you. We have none of that now. We have no power over enemies because we've ceded all of it, which allows them time to plot and plan against us.
Well, first of all, we lifted all the sanctions. We released Iran's assets that were in South Korea and China.
Yeah.
And then also, why would Biden cabal do that? The whole purpose is to destroy America. And they know the cooperation of Russia, China, Iran is the only alignment of red-green axis that can possibly take America down.
Agreed. It also gives more power to this BRIC alternative world currency that has been kind of building up for a while, and not everybody involved with that is necessarily America's enemy. Like India is obviously doing it because it helps them; it's in their self-interest. But just having this alternative to a dollar is going to the petrodollar is going to throw the world into more upheaval. Especially right now, where we have an idiot in office that's, crushing our energy supply as it is. We really could see $300+ per barrel oil if some of these things move forward, and suddenly there's separate markets that it's trading on.
Yeah, by the way, as far as India, some of the other countries, including India, I genuinely think the reason they are getting involved and just doing it is not the fact that it helps them, is the fact that since President Trump is not in the office anymore, we have withdrawn all support from our allies that were cooperating with us.
Yeah.
We're not supporting any of them. I talk bad about Qatar all day long because they are literally helping terrorism right now. But remember, under President Trump, Qatar was one of the tiniest, and by the way, if you don't know where Qatar is, remove the pen from your map on the wall, you'll see it there.
Yeah, probably.
They have nothing, but under President Trump, we offered them protection, military protection, if they would join the peace agreement with Israel.
Yeah.
But that went away. Qatar is on its own. You know what IRGC and Hezbollah can do to Qatar? Well, Qatar is going to step in and say, I'll be hosting your negotiation and I will pay Taliban for you. Yeah. It's our government's fault. We literally purposely, Biden cabal, stopped supporting the small countries that were still playing a huge role as far as our interest goes.
Yeah, exactly. And we're paying the price for it now, and things will only get worse, because what we're seeing now is just what bubbles to the surface. I'm sure there are dozens of things happening in the background right now that we will pay a cost for 3 to 6 months from now. And you're right, abandoning Qatar and abandoning these other countries in Israel that signed on to these peace accords with Israel. That is...
Well, to be honest, Michael, I think the biggest thing we're paying the price for is the fact that every time they pushed, we didn't push back. COVID happened, lockdown happened, vaccine happened, election was stolen. We just sat there, bunch of keyboard ninjas, and by we, I don't mean the three of us or few people who are fighting. I mean, generally as an American.
Yeah.
America stood by and watched it all happen.
Yes. And it's the
and it's unfortunate because America increasingly, especially under the Biden administration, people are losing control of their own country, and we're really just seeing. I mean, I don't even think Joe Biden controls his own White House. I think that he is entirely, as maybe the Iranians would say, a puppet of these globalists who live in America and can control him. So it's upsetting to see like that America is supposed to be a land where the people run the country, and we've kind of let that go, and we've allowed the people to run this country to fall, the power to run this country fall into the hands of other people.
Yeah.
Exactly. We got our churches to thank for that, because the churches kept telling people that you're supposed to be a nice Christian and look the other way.
Right.
And then we definitely have the education system that dumbed down Americans to where they think,
Yeah.
whoa, government is going to do it for me. Why would I bother?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amen to that.
Yeah, and the education system's about to take another blow. Not that it hasn't had enough. We'll get to that here in a second. But a lot of it seems now to also just be undoing any progress that Trump put in place, kind of in a similar fashion to Trump ripping apart a lot of these systems that Obama put in that really held us back or hurt our nation. So now the Biden regime is removing a lot of the immigration judges that Trump put into place. So far, 6 have been axed. I guess there's 6 more on the line. And again, they're being replaced by activists. And with like much of the activity that the Biden regime does in the background, they're not talking about it. They're not really giving good information or anything else. There are some GOP congressmen that are trying to look into this and put some pressure on them, especially when we have this enormous backlog of immigration cases right now. It's like the last thing you need to be doing is getting rid of judges.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is one of the strongest things that Trump did, maybe throughout his entire presidency, was putting all of these judges, these federal judges, circuit judges, into their appointments, because that had like an untold ripple effect in America, where now there's so many people, thousands and thousands of court cases that are going to these judges and being found in a constitutional manner and in a righteous manner, as opposed to, as Mike was saying, these activist judges doing judicial activism, where they just find whatever case they have in front of them to be the most progressive finding possible. You know what I mean? Like a refugee comes and they they entered into the country illegally, let's say, and then the judge just says, well, you should just instantly be given a green card or citizenship because I'm an activist judge and I think that's what's best.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. Well, first of all, being an immigrant myself, I would say I know nobody's giving explanation, but I don't know if you heard, or I did cover it on, I think with Brandon, but there was the Muslim Day on the Hill where all the Muslims gathered with the representation of Muslims in Capitol Hill. And they covered 4 topics. One of those 4 topics was immediate citizenship for all the Afghans we flew over in August and September of 2021. You cannot have a good judge, a good immigration judge in power and get that further. No way. No way an immigration judge picked by President Trump would be like, oh yeah, considering we got 67,000 of them in the country and we don't even know who they are, and so far 50 of them have ties to Islamic terror.
Yeah, sure, that we know of.
Give all of them citizenship.
Yeah, that's absolutely insane.
That is insane. It's ridiculous to me how we have people in this country who think that's acceptable too. And it goes back to what I said. It's like, even with the judicial branch, supposed to be separated from all the other branches and yada, yada, yada. It's like this country is still supposed to represent the people. And when the people, the American citizens here, are getting absolutely screwed over because we're letting like terrorists into the country, that seems like something that is indicative of a broken system and something that really needs to be redone so that we can have a safe nation for everyone.
Well, here's another thing. First of all, please do show me where on the Constitution does it say immigration is a right? Because it isn't. It's a privilege. So everyone needs to stop pretending like it's our job as Americans to provide or accept immigrants. It's not. It's a privilege. In order to earn that privilege, since I've done it, I'm not going to sound like a hypocrite. You go through proper channels. You would spend 3 years of your best time of life as a teenager in Turkey, sharing a house with 9 people, worry about being beheaded overnight by a bunch of Kurdish Turkish people. Then you get approval and you come into the country. You prove who you are. If you're seriously in danger, you should be able to prove that by identifying yourself and giving documentation that's needed to prove that who you are. By the way, this was about 20 years ago. Now, every country has digital system and everybody's connected to each other. So it's very easy to prove who you are and where you come from and why you're in danger. So anybody who's coming into this country, including Iranians, Afghans, Iraqis, Mexicans, I don't care who you are. If you're going to come in, lie, and then run as an immigrant, I will tell you that you're not here to become an American. You're not. You're here to bring your drama and crooked culture and a cult that you grew up in, come bring it here, which I don't want it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, exactly. You already left it once. You don't want to be brought here too.
there are very like rare circumstances where I think that immigration is acceptable, and in cases such as you, Annie, where it's like you are a Christian, you do share our values, and you are essentially like an American, right, in all of your beliefs and values, that you can understand how it's very easy for someone like yourself to assimilate into America. And unfortunately, that is not what the vast majority of people coming here, especially people coming here illegally, are like. And that's the thing. It's like, I don't think it's hypocritical at all to be someone who is an immigrant to America and be fervently anti-immigration and pro-wall, and you could even be pro like zero immigration, theoretically, because you understand that there are very few people on the planet who can completely assimilate into that American fold, just like it would be very difficult for someone in America to completely assimilate into an Iranian fold or a Russian fold or a Chinese fold, right? So I think that we do need some very strict immigration laws, and we can have very rare exceptions that are acceptable. But right now, my goodness, we're letting in way too many people. What is it, over 1 million every year that come to America?
Well, it's over 18,000 a day at this point, just at the southern border. And that's just the ones we catch.
So, 1 million legally, and then how many illegally? There was 200,000 in 1 month illegally, and then regularly, I think there's something of upwards of 100,000 every single month legally as well.
Yeah,
exactly. And funny enough is, if you will read the immigration law, by the ways, we do have a strict laws. We just need someone who's going to enforce it.
exactly.
But if you read the laws, one of the reasons that I kept my head down and live my life to the best of my ability, not breaking any laws, is the fact that one of the terms of my citizenship is, if I ever commit a felony in this country, the judge will have the right to revoke my citizenship. Okay? If you do not have your citizenship yet and you're still under an immigration asylum case, if you commit a felony, the judge has the right to deport you from this country, not necessarily to your place of birth, but to another country that will accept you as a refugee. Anyone who's jumping over the border is already committing felony.
Yeah. Right.
So technically, you committed a felony before you become an immigrant in the country, but none of the judges are willing to enforce the law that because you committed a felony, we're going to deport you back.
Yeah, right. And that's the thing. It's like, I'd actually never heard of that law, and it's not a surprise to me or many others that we haven't heard of this law, because how many immigrants, legal or illegal, who became citizens or even green card holders have not been deported after committing a felony? There's been people who have came here before, particularly from Central America, who go on to commit murders and rapes and drug trafficking charges, heinous felonies, and they still don't get deported. Instead, what we do is we house them in our prisons, and then we let them out, and then they can stay in America. And it's just odd to me that we're not actually, again, I wasn't aware of this law, but it's insane to me that we're not actually enforcing that law, because why on earth would we want, first of all, other people's people in our country, but then the criminals of other people in our country committing crimes, killing our people, and then still keep them here?
Oh, here's another law that you've probably never heard of, but it is within our immigration law. In order for your asylum to be picked up, forget about accepted, just picked up and turned into a file, you have to be able to prove your identity. If you can't prove it, you won't become an asylum seeker. However, well, we got all the made up ages and sex and name and races in our system.
Yeah. Well, in some of this.
Yeah, I don't know if you've read the book by Ann Coulter, but Adios America. She gives an example of one woman who came here for asylum purposes, and then she went on a news show after she got naturalized, and she said, "Oh, I just made up that I was like raped and attempted to be murdered or whatever. I just made that up and I got my citizenship." And then the government found out, and they're like, "Well, you're here anyway, so whatever." And nothing happened, and she just totally lied, made up everything, and it's insane that you could get away with that.
Well,
yeah, but let's just add a little note there. I promise you, I actually have told Michael this a few times. I'm like, if we need to get in trouble, I need you to get in trouble, because me being a Christian conservative citizen, they will make an example out of me and definitely revoke my citizenship.
Oh, yeah.
That is where the hypocrisy of this country starts. If you're a conservative, Christian, American loving, one wrong step, and I promise you, every single immigration federal judge will make an example out of us. But the rest of them, they're going to get away with it because they're going to keep voting for whatever they want them to vote for. They don't have a mind of their own.
Well, across the board, we really do see this like two-tier justice system. So yeah, like you would be treated to that extreme, whereas these people just flooding our border right now, there's no enforcement whatsoever, no mechanism. When in reality, they're economic migrants. These people don't have anywhere near the reason that you did to seek asylum here. It is all about economics, and there's a huge percentage of them that are here basically just to sop up our welfare benefits too, which is bankrupting our country, and bankrupting these states that they're in because they have to float a huge portion of that budget.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only is immigration a huge hot button issue today, but also the next biggest one seems to be CRT.
Yeah.
And is that what is in this next slide here? Yeah, it is. So this is what, Mike, why don't you describe this?
Well, John Cornyn sells us out again. Last time it was gun control. This time it's CRT. He's partnering with the Democrats to push this through the Senate. This will be a bill right now. I think it's only 16 bills.
Texas senator, right?
Yeah, Texas, of all places.
Texas senator.
Same guy that co-sponsored these last red flag laws and everything else. That he is the one that allowed that to move forward in the Senate. I really don't think the Democrats would have been able to get support, or other Republicans wouldn't have broken ranks if he hadn't been so vocal about it and out in front first. Like, oh yeah, let me throw you guys under the bus.
Yeah, and I totally stuttered over all my words at the end because I was looking at that photo of Joe Biden, and I'm like, it's so creepy how Joe Biden is like a genuine like creep and like sniffs little kids. And he's like the president, and no one seems to mind that. And it blows my mind every time I see a photo like that.
Yeah, well, and it blows my mind. There's so many of them, and again, like you don't hear, no one talks about it on the mainstream media. This happens over and over again. I mean,
remember Trump said his daughter was beautiful, and like the media covered that for 3 months, and then Joe Biden is like asking like 11-year-old girls like, "Oh, come talk to me when you're 18," and it's like that's really creepy, Joe. Like that's why he was called Creepy Joe by Trump. Anyways, not to get too off track here, but I don't know what are your thoughts, Annie, on these rhinos, Texas senators who are voting in favor of things like this?
Well, I'm not surprised. At this point, it doesn't matter which state it is. First of all, remember, they are reforming Texas. They've been reforming Texas through illegal immigration anyways. Yeah. Remember, I believe 2 of the planes were unloaded in Texas with more than 6,000 Afghan refugees.
You're correct.
Right there. There's an area in Texas, Fort Worth, I think, close to Dallas.
Yeah.
Honestly, you walk in there, you're like, am I still in America? Because everybody's Iranian. I know, I'm a sellout, whatever. Half of them are here illegally. They came to visit their families. Their visa ran out. They never exited the country. Yes, if ICE would knock at their door, I could prove my point. The point is, at this point, as long as Americans are willing to vote, when Democrats had this vote, it doesn't matter, vote blue, as long as it's blue, it seems like Republicans are doing the same thing. As long as somebody's a Republican, they just vote for them without any homework. They just follow the endorsement. Hey, we got Dr. Oz. I mean, what could go wrong, right?
Yeah, and Democrats
it's the same thing with this guy. There is no such a thing as Republican versus Democrat candidates anymore. It's either we're gonna start voting for godly people, or we're gonna end up with problems like this. Yeah. I'm done with parties. There is no party in my head. There is no more parties. It's either you're an American loving constitutionalist man of God, or don't talk to me.
Right. Agreed. And we just covered a story not too long ago about, Democrats are also actively trying to infiltrate the Republican campaigns in several states to run people that are Democrats as Republicans. And that's exactly what they're counting on, is people to just press that button for the R and think that they're going to get somebody that represents them, when in reality, once they get to Congress, they're just going to sell them out. They may put up a little false resistance, but at the end of the day, they're going to vote with the Democrats on everything, which means they're going to vote to sell out our country.
Exactly, but one note is, it doesn't matter where this thing goes. It doesn't. I know for a fact that if Americans are willing to do something about it, it's simple. Pull your kid out of the school.
Yes.
Homeschool them. And there is no, I have a job. I understand. Every street, every neighborhood has more than enough parents to take turns. Oh, yeah. I teach them Monday, you teach them Tuesday. I'm good at math, you're good at English. There are more than enough parents in each zip code to manage homeschooling for the entire area, instead of giving into, oh, I'm too busy, I got 2 jobs, I can't homeschool. Hey, I don't have a high school diploma, how about that? But if I ever have a kid, homeschooling.
Yeah. Well, that's the one good thing to come out of COVID, or one of the only good things to come out of COVID, was I think this did show a lot of parents that they could do a lot more when it came to educating their kids. Like, I have a neighbor we've brought up on here before that that's what they did, is when they had all these issues at the school and they were back and forth and doing the distance learning, they partnered with a few other parents in the area, and I think it's 6 of them, and they just rotate who teaches the kids. And now they use one of these online homeschooling things that does have a conservative Christian leaning, and that's what they use to educate their kids. And I guess this program they use is good up to high school, and that's kind of their plan, is to keep their kids at home in this program and then reconsider it when they get to high school and maybe continue it on.
Well, it's crazy to think that like you could take someone from like the 1800s who didn't get an education like at all. Like all he knows is just what his parents kind of told him in life. And he would actually be smarter with more common sense than your average kid who makes it through the education system today. Because it's not even like you have to be a great teacher to make your kid like smart and successful in the US. You just have to not be like a drag queen who is talking about critical race theory and gay pride to your kid, which is a pretty low bar to set, in my opinion. And that is what all these public school teachers are doing. I saw yesterday a video on TikTok of a woman crying because she came out as a lesbian to her 6th grade classroom and she was so happy they accepted her. And I'm like, this is what your tax dollars are going towards. And your child would be better off probably with no education if you just put him in front of YouTube and put it like Vsauce on or some like educational YouTube channel, as opposed to these insane public school teachers. And not all of them are like that, but a lot more are becoming like that.
Yeah, and so she was happy that her captive audience of students were happy about whatever she said. They're going to be happy about anything she says, because if they're not, she's probably going to fail them.
Well, some clapped, and she started to definitely cry at that part. She thought it was very adorable, but I'm like, why does this concern 12-year-olds what your sex life is?
I have a question, AJ.
Yep.
So if I was a teacher of, you said kindergarten, right?
She was 6th grade, I think.
6th grade class.
If I was a teacher of a class, 6th grade class, and I would go in and say, praise Jesus, I was saved yesterday and I'm a Christian now. What do you think would happen then?
Handcuffs.
Well, Mike, there was that Supreme Court case of the coach who was just praying to himself on the football field. And that went to the Supreme Court of America to be deliberated on.
Exactly my point. Hypocrisy. So it's okay for her to come out. First of all, 6th graders, I'm pretty sure, well, I hope they don't know the difference. They shouldn't be at that age.
Yeah.
But it's okay for her to be happy about that. But if any shape or form a Christian preaches, talks about Christianity, stand by and do a prayer, or if a Christian kid at a school decide to, hey, I would like to take a moment to pray, we would all be in trouble. But it's okay if gays and lesbians and trans and Muslims require Ramadan month to be an easy homework for kids because they have to do their fasting, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Well, and it's not even like necessarily just like, you're right that there's hypocrisy there, but then to add on to that, it's not even like a one-to-one comparison, because one of them is talking to little kids, 12-year-olds, about your personal sex life as an adult, which is disgusting. And the other one, like prayer, it's like, let's learn about Jesus, or let's meditate through like Christian prayer or whatever. Like there's some positive things to that doesn't harm the child's psychology. Whereas talking about sexual themes with little kids who, their brains aren't developed and they don't understand these things, and parents have values that contradict with that. I mean, that is something objectively damaging, and yet we still let them get away with that. And these teachers aren't getting fired. None of them have been. But yet that football coach, right, who prayed to himself on the football field, Mike, was he fired?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, he had to take the case all the way up to the Supreme Court. You're right, Annie, too. If you went in there and you talked about it, that's how you'd get deported. That case they'd use that as a way to throw you out of the country. If you prayed in front of your class or talked about you're developing your relationship with Jesus or being saved or anything else, you'd be out of here. But it's also the corporations that are backing this. So like Disney, I've lost count of what is this? Like they've either tripled or quadrupled down at this point. So they're again funding operations through GLSEN to create more like LGBTQIA plus. I've lost track of the letters again.
Hey, you did it. You did it right this time.
Okay, good.
You're getting better.
I'm going to learn this without having to write it on my hand. But
you're going to need a bigger hand. It's like your whole arm to write the whole thing. Start
at my elbow and go all the way down to the tip of my middle finger. But anyway, so Disney is now funding this program from GLSEN again, and I feel like this is really insidious. So this is a survey, and they're essentially trying to gather information both from parents and from students about what adversity they face. Like how do they put it here? May have heard derogatory comments about the LGBTQ people, or has things been said in school that make you feel uncomfortable, or do you feel you're discriminated against? They're trying to come up with sympathetic stories to, again, like we talk about this a lot, where the leftists will try to connect with people on an emotional level, not a factual level. And that's exactly what this is going for. So this is part of a longer term push. This is kind of their research step, their information gathering.
Yeah. Well, you can't talk about the facts of the LGBT because, you know, if you did, you'd have to be talking about all these. Like I started looking into patient zero with AIDS and stuff and how it spread. And oh my goodness, you do not want to look into those stories. It's very degenerate, very demonic, some of the stuff that they were doing. So you can't teach like objective facts about the LGBT. You have to frame it in emotions where it's like, oh, it's just two people who love each other. It's just like a man and wife and that's it. But we're almost out of time. Annie, what are your closing thoughts on this story and anything else?
I'm sorry, I'm too blind, so I actually had to wear my glasses to read all of that.
Yeah.
Um,
I know the feeling.
Final thoughts. I don't know what it takes for my fellow Americans to get sick and tired of this, but I hope soon you do. Because listen, live your life however you like. I don't care. I don't. But it started stepping on my toe, start shoving your belief down my throat, start feeling, that's where I'm going to draw the line. Your feelings are yours, mine is mine. First Amendment gives me the right to be offensive, gives you the right to be offended. Deal with it. Enough is enough. I am proud of who I am. If you're proud of who you are, good for you. Otherwise, take your anger and self-hatred elsewhere. Leave this country alone. This country was built on Judeo-Christian values, and we need to stand by them. If you don't like those values, there are so many other countries that will throw you off the buildings for being gay. They will hang you at 5 o'clock in the morning for being gay. Hey, some of them might even chop your head off for being gay.
Yeah.
So sit down, be grateful, and stop crying over everything. That's my final thoughts.
Yeah, and obviously you are over on Frank's Speech, friend of the show, network friend of our show, and you have a MyPillow code, I believe. Do you want to plug that for the audience too?
Absolutely. Actually, with that, you're not just supporting my show, but you're also supporting Frank's Speech, Lindell TV, one of the platforms that is allowing people like us to speak out. Also, Mike Lindell, who's been trying so hard to prove election was stolen.
Yeah.
Go to mypillow.com, use the promo code AC21. That's Annie Cyrus, AC21. You get up to 66% off your purchase, and generous portion of that will come back to me for continuing my broadcast daily on Lindell TV.
Yeah, and
well, that's great. And sorry, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, and make sure, like, it is important to both support Aynaz and support Lindell TV, because so use that code AC21 because he is out there, out in front, getting this message out. And think about it, like if he didn't have this platform, there would be almost nowhere that could talk about some of these shenanigans that went on with the election or other things that are going on. Like, you know, we've talked about a few times where, or some of you have probably noticed, where we've had episodes disappear off YouTube where we've mentioned
totally
getting
deleted.
strikes.
No appeal allowed. It's crazy.
So that's why some of these, because I've also seen in some comments where there's some topics or stories we don't address, even when it's big and it's something we might have talked about a few months ago. And that's why we know if we bring it up here, we're going to get nuked. And we've already got 2 strikes. So we have to be careful through the end of August not to get a third, or our channel is gone.
Yes, absolutely. So do check out Annie's show on Frank's Speech, and you can use her MyPillow code to get some amazing products. I have like 4 MyPillows myself. I absolutely love them, and I love supporting Mike Lindell, who I've advocated many times to overthrow the U.S. government and become king, or sit on the Supreme Court, whichever works. But I would like him in some sort of power. But that seems to be all the time we have today. So you can find us on all other platforms at punchingleft.com. You can subscribe to our Telegram channel, our YouTube channel, and follow us on Odyssey. All of that is at punchingleft.com. It's a nice website. It's a nice landing page. It's not messy. It looks good. Check it out, punchingleft.com. Thank you, everybody, for joining. God bless each and every one of you guys, and take care.
Yeah, thanks again. We'll see everybody soon. I also want to let you guys know to keep your eye out. We'll be appearing, too, on Annie's show on Live Up to Freedom from time to time. So thanks again. We'll see everybody soon.